Now we know everyone's first modification when you get a new or a new used car is the intake. I'm Rusty with FCP Euro, and today I'm going to show you guys how to install this 034 Motorsport X34 carbon fiber intake system. Now, in front of me on the table, I have the X34 carbon fiber intake system from 034 Motorsport. This is a slightly optional kit, and they do offer a couple of different kits as well as the one that we have in front of us. We do offer everything at fcpro.com if you're interested in a different option. But as far as the options for this specific kit go, the base kit starts with the box, the air inlet, the intake, the coupler, and some hardware additionally. We also have the turbocharger inlet and then the ram air inlet that will go to the radiator support. Now, aside from this kit being very aesthetically pleasing with all these carbon fiber bits we'll be installing in the engine bay, we are going to actually get some horsepower increase as well as some added throttle response by having a little bit extra CFM or cubic feet per minute, reducing our intake temperatures, and last but not least, the reason why we're all here, adding some turbo noises.
A few hours later.
So let's talk about some of the tools we'll need to get into the job. So in front of me on the table are some of the tools we'll need for today's DIY. I've got a 90-degree pick along with a pocket screwdriver for taking off some of the connectors as well as some of the breather lines, flashlight for making sure you can see what you're doing, and then we have a 1/4-inch ratchet with some 1/4-inch bits and sockets. A lot of the stuff on this car, on the intake specifically, is very fragile when we're reinstalling, so you're not going to want anything too large that you can get too much leverage. Also, we have the little bit driver that I have with some half-cut Torx as well as the Allen for refitting the new intake manifold, which is a little bit of a tight fit. But for sockets, we have an 8mm, a 7mm. I do have a small 1/4-inch extension here. The Allen drive that I've chosen to use is a ball drive on the end, which will give you a little bit more accessibility, as well as a T25, and then finally a 3mm Allen, which is not in everyone's toolbox, but will be necessary for refitting the carbon fiber inlet. All right, and that pretty much takes care of tools. As far as chemicals are concerned, we do have a couple of things on hand here. I've got some Vaseline. You could use grease as well, but something you're gonna need to keep that O-ring in place on the back of the turbo inlet when we're going back to install the new 034 Motorsport unit. The high tack I have here, we may find this helpful for holding that O-ring in place if the grease or Vaseline doesn't do the trick. We do carry this Loctite high tack stick at fcpro.com. And then we have some silicone spray or something of the sort. This is going to be helpful for fitting the couplers as well as the air filter onto the carbon fiber parts. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, just like every DIY in this car, first step is remove the engine cover. Now we're going to go ahead and take the front cowl panel off. You will need a small pocket screwdriver to release the hood handle here. Insert the screwdriver towards the top and pull the handle up and away. And it does have a keyway on it, so you can't get that mixed up upon installation. For the front cowl here, we are just going to lift up on the corners and then slide this directly out. Next step, while you're up here, you do have 2 screws holding in the ram air part of the airbox, and one of the main reasons we're replacing ours is actually broken, and this screw is just kind of hanging out in there loose. So we're going to just take this one out, and these plastic pieces were obviously very over tightened and our mounting point had broken on that. So we'll be replacing that in the end, and I can just throw that out. Now, before we go ahead and remove the box, we will have to get this corrugated air inlet out, and it has either a flathead screw or a 7mm socket to remove that. Get the clamp loose enough, and then you can kind of push it off the turbo inlet and get it away. And you can see after I got that off, the box pretty much started to walk out. So you do have a series of grommets. If you just pull the box straight up, it should be released quite easily. There is this little drain, if you will, where it allows water to get out. Careful not to break that if you plan on reinstalling this on down the road. So just make sure you pull straight up when you take the box out. A couple of the feet may remain in the body. We will need those later on to transfer to our new airbox. And you can see this one right here has kind of stuck to the airbox as well. We do have one more still stuck in the frame rail. Just grab it and pull and get it out of the frame rail. Set those off to the side for installation later. Now, if you do have the entire kit with the turbo inlet as well as the ram air, you can follow along right now. If you're just installing the carbon fiber box, you can skip ahead. I just wanted to splice this up as the kit is somewhat modular. So I'm going to take a second with a rag to kind of clean up some of the area around the mounts, kind of clean it up, make it look a little bit better, and we'll catch you guys in a second here. Now the next step before we go ahead and install the airbox is we're going to swap out this air inlet. We do want to take off the PCV hose. If you don't have the 034 Motorsport upgraded one, it will be a little bit more difficult. You're probably going to want to take off both of the other ends, and if you want a installation video or removal video on the factory PCV hoses, you can check out our video on the 034 PCV kit. So for this one though, with the 034 kit, it is just like the factory connections over here. Just a squeeze clamp right here and pull that off. We don't have to go ahead and disconnect any of this. We are just working in this area only. Our particular car does not have the zip tie here on this little mount. Generally, there would be a zip tie holding this one in place, so I will have to add that zip tie later on. There is one more zip tie bracket, if you will, that's holding on to the top of the turbo inlet. Just pull that up and away and giving yourself plenty of room in here to work. I am saying that sarcastically because there's really not that much room. Once you get down here, you'll see what I'm talking about. The turbo inlet is held in with two T30s, and top one is very visible and very accessible. The one down below is not. In order to actually get directly on that, you would want to take out the little Y charge pipe here. However, we'll show you a little trick in order to get in there and release that T30 with ease. So I do have these little half-cut T30 bits here. These are not going to need much clearance for the top. However, I was just showing you the tool. We're going to crack this top one loose, and then on the very bottom one, you're going to need something with very, very small clearance. Again, unless you're able to get that charge pipe off, a typical normal T30 bit may not fit in there. If you're able to, a bit like this on a 1/4 inch wrench, maybe with a little super glue in there to keep it intact. However, the ratcheting little bit driver I have here is going to make a world of a difference. So that one bolt is located directly under the turbo inlet, and it is a little bit tight. Don't worry, it will not fall out. It does have a stopper on the end of that, so you can run that bolt all the way out and not have to worry. All right, so again, you're going to need something with some very low clearance to get in here, and I can't even get in here with this. Now that I've got that T30 loose, I am going to release this evap line just to give us a little bit more clearance. Just being able to push that back is going to give us all the room we need to ratchet this wrench. And again, ratcheting portion is only going to work for so long. It's not going to probably work all the way to the end, but you may even benefit from putting a finger on the back of your ratchet and holding it from spinning back when you're ratcheting. You guys can't see this, I understand, but if you're sitting in front of the car, you'll know what I'm talking about. So once you get those loose, you'll notice that there's a small breather line at the bottom of that. We will need to release the clips similar to the PCV hose, squeezing both of them and kind of pulling the inlet up at the same time. It's a little bit of a finesse. You kind of have to work with it. There we go. So again, squeezing both of those tabs to open up the sides will release that breather line. Now we are not going to be using this anymore, as we're going to be installing the 034 Motorsport turbo inlet. Now, first step actually is going to be installing the hardware before you actually put the pipe in there. You'll notice that the turbo inlet does have a slotted hole on one end of the ear, if you will, of the pipe. We are just going to clean this up a little bit, wiping off any debris that's sitting there. Ours obviously is a brand new turbo, and if you want to see the DIY on that, we also have another DIY on the full turbo replacement. So ours is fairly clean. You may actually have a little bit of oil, a little bit of debris there. You're going to want to clean that up before you install this new pipe. One of the 5mm Allens and washers that comes with the turbo inlet, I'm going to put it in the bottom threads of the turbo inlet, and you're just going to want to turn it in a couple turns so that it's started. And it's easier said than done with gloves on in this tight area. So you're going to want to have it installed just like that, just enough in there that it doesn't fall out, and just enough that you can actually get the ear of the turbo inlet squeezed behind it and tighten it up after. Now we're going to be going ahead and installing the turbo inlet adapter. We're using the OE size. There is a variation of different sizes for obviously with different turbos. The kit does come with one of the O-rings installed and then one loose O-ring. So we are going to just put a little bit of Vaseline on the very outside O-ring, and then a little bit more Vaseline on the O-ring that is going to be sitting on the flat surface. The reason we want to put a little bit of grease on there is that so it has something to stick and tack against while you're going to put the turbo inlet in so that it doesn't drop down. And you'll see that in a minute here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Vaseline on my finger and run the O-ring on the very outside. And then just a little bit more, I'm going to use that around the entire other O-ring, the loose one. Now you're going to lay that into the groove where the part number is visible on the flat face. You're going to want to press that in pretty well. The grease should hopefully keep it in place. So carefully work your fingers around here. You don't want to push too hard. You want to kind of just work it in, making sure that the grease is keeping it in that groove. And we're going to go ahead and wipe my fingers here. This adapter does have the flat surface as well as the rolled edge. That rolled edge is going to be where the air goes into the turbo. So the flat edge is actually going to go what you're seeing here. The flat edge is going to go against the face of the turbo. The rolled edge is going to go down, and it actually won't fit the other way. It does have a little bit of a drop down machined into the edge, so it will only fit in this way. And you'll notice it is a very tight fit. So you're going to want to work the adapter down, and we're probably going to have to refit that outer O-ring because I just watched it pop out. So I'm going to move this O-ring out of the way for a second. So this is going to sit nice and flush in the turbo inlet, and then our O-ring will sit in that groove on the outside. Wipe away any excess grease. You don't want to get any grease, silicone, whatever you may have used, or Vaseline into the turbo, but it shouldn't do any harm. And I'm going to just do a little test or a check to make sure that that O-ring stays in place and doesn't fall off, because when you go to put this in, it very well could drop down on the belt drive. You won't know unless you can actually get behind there and see. I'm also going to put a little bit of Vaseline on this fitting here to make sure that that breather installs very nicely and easily. Probably couldn't hurt to do the PCV one as well. All right, now this inlet is ready to be installed. You're going to go in the same direction between these two harnesses. You want to really make sure that you don't catch that O-ring on any of these harnesses while you go in, because it'll most likely knock it off. While you have it laid in place, try to fit your breather. And I'm going to squeeze the inlet against that so that the O-ring doesn't go anywhere. It is a little bit of a dance. I'm going to have to get a hand underneath the inlet and make sure that firmly engages. Then we're going to tip this back, make sure the O-ring's in place, which it's not. Gently press that back into the groove, making sure it stays. All right, once your O-ring's in place, catch the lower turbo inlet ear on the housing, and then we'll start to install that upper bolt. So while keeping some firm pressure against the turbo inlet, we're going to hand tighten this bolt till flush, and then I'll go back down and tighten up that lower one as well. So again, with the half-cut Torx spits, I have a half-cut 5mm Allen, which will give us just enough clearance to get in there and tighten up that lower bolt that we installed before the inlet went in. And with the larger inlet, there's definitely not as much room to get your hand underneath there. So I'm using the tip of my pinky on the back of my ratchet to keep it from ratcheting backwards while tightening this little 5mm. So hopefully this is going to stay in place, and the editors are probably going to fast forward this because this is going to take a little while. Now on this top one, we will need a little bit of a ball tipped Allen drive here. So we're going to use a 5mm ball Allen just to make sure we get this nice and tight. And now we're just going to go ahead and snug up that bottom one once more, making sure the O-ring's not poking out anywhere. Now I'm not going to torque these to spec because I'm not going to be able to get a torque wrench down in that bottom section there. So just snug these up nice and well. That should be all right. We'll go back and check that top one once more. All right. So once you have the inlet secured, you're going to just go do a good once over, make sure the O-ring hasn't popped out around any of the corners. It's definitely going to be pretty difficult to see underneath there, so you may want to even get a mirror underneath and make sure you have no O-ring squeezing out between the two pieces. So once you're secured with that and you make sure that the breather line is on the bottom there, we can go ahead and resecure our harness and reinstall our PCV breather here. And just like removal, it is just gonna click into place, give it a good tug, and that is taken care of. So we are gonna, if you did remove the evap breather line, we're also gonna re-secure that, simply just clicking it back into place. All right, now that we have the inlet in, we can start assembling the rest of the intake and the box as well. We're just gonna take the coupler and place it on the inlet here, clocking the 034 Motorsport so it's visible. You may have to open up these clamps a little bit. I'm just gonna leave this loose so it allows us to get the other portion lined up. Again, just loosen the clamps, walk them back a little so that you can give yourself enough room to fit that other section. And we're just gonna put this to the point of the, where the machining stops on the end of the inlet, and just make sure you're in a good spot. We can adjust that later on once we get the rest of that in there. Now we're gonna go ahead and assemble the actual air filter portion before putting it into the box. A little bit of silicone. I have the Worth HHSK here. It's just a little lubricant to make it easier. I'm just gonna put that on the inside of the air filter here. And then we're just gonna slide this into the air filter. Again, you may have to open this clamp up a little bit as well. It does take a little finesse. Make sure it's firmly seated. It will sit in a recess inside the filter. It's not gonna sit all the way down on that ridge there. But then once you get that on there, we can go ahead and put our clamp around it. Careful not to scratch. It's like a game of operation. We're gonna go ahead and tighten this up. You can just use a Phillips head, flathead, or an 8mm socket. Now we're gonna go ahead and put this inside of the air box. All right, now that we have the air filter assembled onto the inlet here, we are gonna transfer the feet from the old air box. As I said earlier, grab them out of the inserts in the frame or off of your air box, and we will transfer those to the new box. 2 on the bottom, and then 1 more up top here. If you're having trouble fitting them, you can certainly use a little silicone or something to get them fitted. And then it is going to be a little bit of a finesse to insert this air filter. I kind of twist it into place. And then you may have to hold the air filter box like this and have the air filter recessed to clear the turbo inlet here. All right, it is going to take a little bit of finesse to get it in there without bumping it or scratching it, but you do want to make sure that those 3 grommets are firmly seated into their home, and that way you'll make sure that this is going to be in its final place before we go tighten up this clamp. Once that's fitted and secured in its final spot, we are going to just pick up the air filter here. Again, you can kind of reach through the box here, careful not to scratch anything, and rotate it into place. It will get to a point where it almost seals off the inlet of the air box entirely. And then we're going to adjust our coupler here to match. All right, I'm going to secure the back end of the coupler before finding the final resting place of this one, and then I'll go re-secure this clamp back on here. Now again, you're going to want to rotate that until the little recess where the air filter was is pretty much right at the weather stripping here on the edge of that box. And then we're going to put that clamp back on. All right, now that's pretty much in its resting place. For the rest of the kit, we do still need to install the carbon fiber air inlet, and we did take out that one screw that was giving us a little hard time on the beginning. So we're almost there. Let's keep going. So if you went for the full kit like we did here, we are going to install this carbon fiber inlet. However, the stock inlet does fit in the box just like it would with the other one, so you can certainly install that one if you didn't go for the full kit. We are going to just drop this in nice and carefully. So it is a pretty snug fit in here. I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant on my finger and just run it around that seal. So this part will take a little bit of finesse as well. Careful not to roll the seal on the airbox. Just kind of have to lubricate the 2 pieces a little bit more than I expected and kind of work it into place, moving it back and forth into the box before finally getting it into the radiator support in the front here. Now the air inlet does have 2 new fasteners, which is lucky for us because the old ones were broken. So we do have the 3mm Allen to install this. Far side first here. So we're going to take the second bolt. After you've made sure it's lined up, you may have to push down on it slightly. We're just going to keep running these screws in until they're about hand tight, and just make sure that the inlet is not loose, not rattling around. It doesn't have to be super tight, but we don't want to go too tight because it's definitely going to snap the carbon fiber on the back. So just be mindful that you don't go superhuman strength on these, and do not use an impact gun. That's good, it's not moving around. That's good there. Now we're gonna go back and just make sure the feet are still planted, everything's still sealed, everything's good. Give it a good wipe down. Go ahead and wipe all your fingerprints off that nice fancy carbon fiber, and if you use some silicone, get that off there. All it's gonna do is attract dirt and grease. And again, just kind of make sure everything is fully seated. Ready to go ahead and install the front radiator cover as well as the hood handle, and then we're almost ready to see what this thing sounds like. All right, we're gonna slide that right into the little provision in front of there, and then we're just gonna click this into place, making sure we have that clip that we depressed in there. Kind of gonna get installed into the like 5 o'clock, 5:30 position. If I can find the keyway, there we go. Nope, I'm gonna have to pop that out. You may have to disengage the clip a little bit, get that to sit in the right spot. And again, just pull up on it, make sure it engages. If not, you may have to fidget with that clip on the top. And if any of these zip ties here were broken like ours was, it is quite simple. These little clips have a little loop. You can go ahead and resecure with the zip tie. We'll get this loosely fitted and find a new home for the harness. So just go ahead and secure the piece onto your new inlet, get your harness in place. And that's all resecured. We can go put our engine cover back on. Drop it over the heat shield, lining up the oil cap, making sure not to pinch your wastegate line there. All right, so let's see how this thing sounds. Keep in mind, we do have a resonator delete, and if you want to see that DIY, we have that one already uploaded as well. So it might be a little spicier than your Audi. Let it warm up for a second here. Sorry, the car's screaming at us because we have a low key fob battery. Not bad. I'm sure it'll sound better on the road. Sounds pretty good. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If so, hit that like button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, get into the comments section down below. As always, we'll have plenty more videos on this vehicle and many others like it, so don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.